The last few months prior to this episode, there have been some shakings and rumblings in the online space. I wanted to ask you what you've seen across the content website portfolios that you both own, manage. I want to know what changes you've seen.
We are seeing across our community and even within our own portfolio and with some of our close friends' portfolios, a mixed bag of results. Some sites are going gangbusters, are going really well. Others have been slammed, like traffic fallen off a cliff 80%. For every site that gets hit, there's a site that goes up. So your job is to figure out, okay, how the hell do I take advantage of this?
James Schramko here. Welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 1077. Got a long time friend and gosh, at one point client, also I guess a promotion partner, Matt Rard. Good to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me on, James. Great to be here again.
I always get such good feedback when we talk about you and your things. You've kindly run online events, education events for my clients before. Everyone who goes sends me a thank you. That was really informative. It was great value. The people who buy, because you do have a program available, I'll just get that out there right now. Some of them, I remember actually I was sitting there at a car dealership and I had my car in for service and some guy contacted me and he said, I got your name from a friend of yours and he said, you're the guy to help me. And I said, well, tell me what you're doing. He goes, oh, well, I've been in real estate and I want to come online and I like investing. I don't know anything about it online yet, but you're the guy. I said, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy for you, but I do know the guy and the girl,
Right.
Matt
Yeah,
and
and the
Liz,
girl.
right?
Yep.
Sent him across. He came on board the program and he just loved it. It's like it appealed to all of the things that he liked. He liked investing. He liked learning. And I think where your program is special is it's one of the very few things outside of my own network of partners and products where you can actually deal with people who are starting out. That's quite rare because a lot of programs assume prior knowledge, and even my own coaching, right? I coach people like you guys were
Yeah, like
before,
us. It was awesome.
when you were speaking on the stage a lot and you wanted
Yep,
to go deep with the online stuff. Like I
that's right.
prefer people further down the track. And so I just refer people all the time. If you want to get started, you don't know where to start, or you're keen to learn or hungry, this is the place. That being said, some of the other good feedback that I've had is from some of the most experienced online savvy people. One comes to mind was my website developer programmer friend who's, he worked for Apple at some stage doing programming. And he liked the program because it taught him the business marketing savvy, the decision-making frameworks, the where to invest, what to grow, what to keep, what to sell. And I thought it'd be timely to have a chat because, in the last few months prior to this episode, there have been some shakings and rumblings in the online space. I'm pretty connected to it through some of my partners. I've got partners who do paid traffic, like Charlie Vailer. I've got partners who do SEO, like Get Malak. And I see very closely watching their business what happens. But I wanted to ask you, and I wrote this down here because I want to be accurate. I wanted to ask you what you've seen across the content website portfolios that you both own, manage, educate, and you're involved with your own students. I want to know what changes you've seen, and I was particularly interested in things like where the AI is up to because we heard so much about it last year, and to me, it would just seem like at some point people are going to get ultra lazy and just start cutting and pasting. And I'm sure that's been happening. And I wanted to know what's going to happen with that. But I also wanted to know, I've got to say, and I know this is a super long intro, but it really sets the context for this. And I will shut up in a minute and let you talk. When I'm coaching people, I've seen some really, really record months, high highs. And then I've seen some people running into some storms, depending on what market they're in and where there's enterprise pullbacks and redundancies because of suspect AI. There's a little bit of financial pressure from people in some quarters for spending capacity. But then in other markets and categories, it's absolutely booming. So I'll just now turn it over to you, Matt. What are you seeing through your lens, and how can we glean some good intel from that?
Yeah, I love these sorts of questions, James. This is my passion. I live and breathe this. And like you said, to put in context why it's really cool for James and I to be sharing with your listeners here. I'm like James. I live and breathe websites, online businesses. We teach beginners, not intermediates like you do. We teach beginners how to buy and sell online businesses. And in particular, what's really interesting now is Liz and I started out buying and selling bricks and mortar businesses. And when we got online, we just did exactly the same, but with online businesses. But one big difference to what most people think of when they think of online businesses, we never, ever touched e-commerce because of our background. We owned and bought and sold manufacturing businesses or wholesale import businesses. Very, very difficult to run. So we avoid anything to do with physical inventory. Now, why that's important today, because of what's happened in recent times with the Google update, it is wholly, solely targeted the very sites that we buy and sell since 2008. We've been doing it since the GFC. So we buy and sell content sites. And of course, the latest Google update is called HCU update, which is Helpful Content Update. So I guess in a way, I'm at the coalface where we're at the pointy end of the stick seeing the impacts of this Google update. And for anyone listening here, if you own a content site, you would know all about it. And I'm sure you've read about it. There's a lot of fear out there. So from our point of view, we're not only passionate or intensely interested in this topic because we own content sites ourselves, but we teach beginners how to do it. And we also we're very well networked in this space. So we have a lot of personal friends and a lot of connections who own 7 and 8 figure, we're talking tens of millions worth of websites, doing big numbers in the content site space. And also we know all the website brokers around the world, all the big guys. And so I've been for the last 6 months, networking like crazy, chatting to everyone that I can think of, going, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Is this for real? Is it as bad? Because like you said, James, we are seeing across our community and even within our own portfolio and with some of our close friends' portfolios who I chat to obviously in a lot of detail with, a mixed bag of results. Some sites are going gangbusters, are going really well. Others have been slammed, like traffic fallen off a cliff 80%, which is, gut-wrenching to people that have been putting work into those sites. But what I wanted to get to was over the last 6 months, taken me a good 6 months to figure out what's going on. I want to get to what's the real truth, because out there online, the squeaky wheel is amplified. Oh man, the naysayers, far out. It's like the end of the world. Now, I got to admit, it'd be pretty bad if you owned a website that dropped in 90% traffic. Been there, done that. We've been doing this since 2008. So first and foremost, if you're listening to this and you've been impacted, I want you to understand something. Liz and I, my wife and I, started this in 2008. We were very successful at it very quickly because of our previous business background. But I've got to tell you, in 2009, we got hit by a Google update. And, it's gut-wrenching. Guess what happened in 2010? Got hit by a Google update. Guess what happened in 2011? Got hit by a Google update.
Were these pandas and penguins? Were these
No, that was even
creatures?
before then. So by the time penguin and panda came around, so everyone
remember all of this.
Penguin and panda.
I had an SEO business around.
Yeah,
around
that's
this
right.
time.
So you know all about it. But remember, penguin and panda came out around 2012, 2013, and everyone went nuts over it, saying it was the end of the world and Google are really bad and all that sort of stuff. I'm here to tell you, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get rich, online is the place to be, but expect challenges. That's the journey of an entrepreneur. It's exactly the same when we're buying some bricks and mortar businesses. Every year you get hit somewhere in business. So first and foremost, whilst it is very challenging, particularly if you're a beginner to intermediate, just recognize it's going to happen to you every single year. There will be something online or in any business, maybe even if you have a job, you could lose your job next year. Who knows? But first thing is, just take a deep breath and go, all right, this is going to happen. So what we've instead got to do is look for the opportunities. And that's what we're about. Because for us, James, and for anyone listening here, This is particularly relevant because sadly, in this instance, with this particular update, it is affecting beginners a lot more than our more experienced clients or more experienced friends who are doing this. And, when I talk around anyone with big sites, some of them are seeing record months because for every site that gets hit, there's a site that goes up, that gets ranked higher. So you've got to think about that. So your job is to figure out, if you're listening to this, okay, how the hell do I take advantage of this? And so there's probably two camps of people listening to this. One is you've been hit by the Google update, which you've just heard Liz and I have been hit every single year since we've been on this game. Or B, you're looking for the opportunities because, as we know, like Warren Buffett, when there's a bit of fear out there, that's when you make the most money. And that's what I'm excited about. We need to let the dust settle first, though. That's my experience over all these years. Is one thing we learned is don't panic, let the dust settle. There's always a way. We actually teach that to our kids. We're teaching them how to be resilient. We've got it all up. If people come to our house, there's all these little posters that say, I can always find a way. Mummy and daddy learnt that online, and now our kids know that as well. There's always a way. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're here to talk about today, because there is ways to make money here. And also, there is reasons why sites are getting hit. It's now pretty obvious what's happened. So that's it in a nutshell.
You gave a couple of clues there. You said a website and a job, and in both of those cases, you're sort of indicating someone might be more hurt if they're single source dependent. If they only have one of something, it is easier to get hit hard. Reminded me when those updates came through and I had an SEO business, a lot of our competitors collapsed, primarily because they were relying on blog networks and just buying links. And I'm not sure which of the updates it was, but our team we had an R&D team, and the R&D team, their job was to make the websites rank not using the methods that we're using today, to anticipate change. And we were able to navigate around that, and to eventually we moved off our own blog network. We had 1,000 of our own websites, which was handy, and could rank anything the next day. But we were able to move off them into other people's websites, which were far more protected, and that's what the business model became. Now, I'm just curious, how many of your clients or people who you know have done well have done it off just one website? I'm thinking the car guy probably did pretty well off one.
Yeah.
But do you encourage portfolios just while
very
I'm
much
in this?
So that's something Liz and I are very passionate about over the years. We teach one is a very dangerous number, particularly when you're online. And what we said for the last sort of decade or so is, in the old days, we'd have hundreds of sites. But over the years, really interestingly, that's narrowed down a lot, because we find most people who we're training people to transition from full-time corporate. They just can't handle that many sites. Even Liz and I don't have that many now. What the sweet spot is a portfolio of about 10 websites for most people. That seems to be, so it's, some are pretty average little sites. It's the 80-20 rule. But there'll be 2 sites out of those 10 that make you most of the money. There'll be 3 or 4 that tick along and do pretty good. Might just make you, like saying if you're an intermediate, might make you a couple of grand to 10 grand a month each one. So that's not a bad income just off those. But if you get 2 that hit the big wins, where you're getting over 10 grand a month, or, up in even higher than that, especially when you're getting into the 7 figures, that seems to work really well, having that portfolio idea. But what's interesting, James, is out of this recent update, I guess what it's highlighted to us, we're slightly changing our thinking. This sounds really unusual. Liz and I are big portfolio people. All our friends are, and in business, they were our mentors. We're always taught that. Buy and sell multiple businesses. That's what you do when you're that sort of an entrepreneur. These days, we think there's merit in focusing on your winning sites. So you still need to, as a beginner, so it depends who we're talking to, right? But if you're transitioning, you're doing this as a side hustle first and you want it to replace your income, we teach people start out on a couple of small sites and build up your skills and get a few going, and then whittle it down to 1 or 2 key ones. And I think that's a really smart strategy these days, because what Google's wanting now, see, the problem is if I tell You and I tell a beginner type person, go and start a portfolio. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to spam it. They're going to accidentally try and cut corners. They're going to mass produce content because you can. It's actually pretty easy. And they're going to build 10, I won't swear, but 10 pretty average. I was going to say crappy, but
You
am I
can
allowed
say
to say that?
crappy. Yeah, it's a,
Yeah, yeah. They're going to build 10 pretty crappy sites and they're just repeating the crap,
you won't
being
believe
honest
this.
about it.
You won't believe this, but you know what my theme for 2024 was with the team?
Yep.
Less but better.
Yeah.
It's a Dieter
Perfect.
Rams book, but I have the least websites and least income streams than I've ever had online. Because when I went online in 2009, when I quit my job, at the end of that year, I had a cash flow crunch when a company that I was selling products for went under. And I'd spent all the money on the ads and they didn't send the commission check. So that's why that was 2008, sorry. In 2009, that's when I started my recurring subscription membership because I'm like, I'm going to protect myself.
Yeah. Yep.
But the core of it, and this is it's quite interesting, is I've kept that recurring subscription membership since 2009. I added a higher level recurring subscription membership since 2010, which you were in. And from 2016, I started doing the royalty revenue share type deals. And then on a current stats, right, we're at 2024 as we record this. So over 8 years, I've had 16 deals and I've ended up with 8 keepers, of which half of those are really high performers, right? So to put it in perspective, 3 or 4 single income sources cover probably a third of my income. And I've only got really 2 products of my own. That's the low ticket and the high ticket membership. And I have a partnership with my wife with Vision Find, the recruitment company. And I've got my content site still that you helped me with that is powering along. And these days, the big innovation we've had this year is cranking out YouTube.
Yes.
We have
I was going to mention that. That's
a few months ago, we had 70 subscribers, and the last 3 videos we've published have cracked 9 or 10,000 views each.
right.
And
Yep.
here's what we do with them. We cut the video up into screen grabs and transcribe it and then make an original post from it on the website. And we are ranking like crazy. That thing is still bringing ad revenue from the content side of it. It's I think 20 subscribers from being monetized now at the time of recording this. So by the time it's published, we'll be collecting money from YouTube. But I noticed the YouTube is ranking very, very strongly.
We've noticed the same. It's a must-have. If you want to get serious about this and you want to do 6 and 7 figures, we're telling everyone that's why you need to pick one of your sites and focus. You know, you were talking about portfolio versus focus. And we find when we're coaching people, and even Liz and myself and amongst our friends, the sites that you get passionate about are the ones you're going to work on. And we've got a little test. So what I say to people now is, when you go to buy a website or for your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal with your online business, the test is this a site? It doesn't matter whether you're an expert in or not, but is it a site that you're prepared to work at for the next 5 or 10 years? Like, put a big, long time frame. You can do it a lot quicker than that, by the way, if you're listening to this, but that's just the test. Because if you go, you know what, that would bore me, then I would move on to another site that you can really put in the effort. And then that leads into exactly what you're saying. Like your site is a passion site. It's the perfect example when you think about it.
I've actually, I went from 2,000 domains to now having 3 websites.
Yeah.
Right. I've rolled up all my podcasts, all my affiliate sites, all my service sites. I sold the services. That was great. I've just got jamesschramko.com, which is where I house all my memberships, both of them. And I've got my wife and I have visionfind.com, and I have my content site and my team.
Your content site that you're passionate about, that or your team is. You can see yourself working at that. When did you say? Like 2016, you're working at it, and you're still going today. And you're finding the YouTube channel's working.
The YouTube channel works because I'm really I've got some very good help from Zach Mason. He's just like a wizard. He tells me what content to make. We research. He says, make this content. We script it, film it, edit it, publish it, and it's tight. And we're getting virality. YouTube's promoting it on their homepage to other surfers because it's clearly I don't have anywhere near as many subscribers as we get views. We get 20 times more views than we have subscribers. So we're hitting the mark, and this is all translating back to the site. They're a tandem pair. I still don't think I've actually mentioned my name anywhere on the videos, and some of the videos are just voiceovers, right? So I still have in mind to sell that. I would like to sell that at some point. But speaking to your point of passion, I'm actually getting pretty good at it, and we get a lot of comments, and the comments inform us. So I like having that one motherlode content site. And my play was, I thought there will be wave pools everywhere. It's being in the Olympics. It's going to be a bigger market. It'll be 10 times bigger than when I started, and it's all panned out. So that was my long play, and I've invested more up front than what it earned. That's like the ultimate long play bet, and I'm really, really happy, mate. I even got my merch now, caps and everything. I'm not
Right.
far off being able to create my own product line for the equipment that we review. So if I wanted to go down that path, but I'd only do it to set up to sell to someone else, to your point about not wanting to have stock.
You know what else you can do on that site, James? See, what I'm always sitting there thinking is with content sites, one of the key strategies is of renovating it. We call it renovating a content site. Remember when I met you, I said, all right, we'll put on bigger ad networks, get more money. But the number one thing we do is we renovate is traffic, which is SEO or paid, and then monetization. So I'm always thinking, what's an alternative way you can monetize sites? And I've seen every method under the sun because it's all I study. With that particular site, you could, because I've helped the client do this in exactly the same niche, you could add in a travel element because our client wanted to be able to travel overseas, fully paid. She had a very successful site, exactly very similar to yours, and it was typically making money off affiliate sales from reviewing products and ads and things. But I was saying to her, well, you could pretty easily just have a category on that site because you're passionate about it, visiting these countries like the Philippines and going
Maldives, Philippines.
Yeah, Maldives, doing all the surfing trips and stuff. So, well, why don't you put a travel arm? It's real content because you film it yourself when you're there and show, hey, this is what us surfers do when we're in these places, and then just cut affiliate deals. There's lots of affiliate programs that you could get with even just hotels. Now, it's not massive, but that could lead into something else. It could lead into direct sponsorship and all sorts of things. And I would recommend, that's the sort of thing you need to be thinking about as a site owner, just testing those sort of, what do you call them, like a topic cluster. You could just add it in because you travel a lot with it, right? And so does your target market. Anyone that comes on that site, they got to research it somewhere. So if they're already on your site, they might as well go, well, what do these guys recommend? Where should I stay when I'm here? Or anything to do with travel. What's the easy? Who should I hire to, for the boat to take me out, on tours every day or whatever? It's just stuff like that. Because you're passionate about it, you can just keep testing it, and you'll find some of them will work really well. Some won't, but some will work really well.
People send equipment as well.
Yeah, that's gold. That's what you want. And you want photographs and you can see what you're doing. This is passion. This is what we're trying to teach our beginner students. It's for you. It's easy. You know how to do all this. You're the expert at it as well. But that's the sort of thing. Anyone listening here, you want to be doing what James is doing, and that's why we're finding. And now we're trying to get people more to focus on their passion sites that they enjoy. And also, one other big tip I would give, and I'm just, again, thinking of your site here, it's the perfect one for it down the track too, is I've got another test, right? So is it something you're prepared to work at for 5 years? That's a really good sign because you will naturally build what I call a real site, because we can talk about in a minute what Google doesn't want, because they don't want the AI stuff, right? And nor do humans these days. But the other thing that you could implement in terms of monetization, testing monetization, is an email list. And I know, both you and I have been teaching that to people for many years. Liz and I live and breathe and swear by it. But these days we're saying to people, guys, seriously, that's a test. If you buy a site and you're thinking, I can't, it's reviews outdoor patio heaters. Okay, how can I build a community around that? Not really. It's pretty boring. I've got this site about surfing. How can I build a community around it? It's easy. I can put a Facebook page. I can put an email list. If you get that big tick on your website, That's how you're going to win with content sites going forward, building this community. We call it a tribe, like an actual proper following. And a big part of that, coming back to what you've discovered, is we're telling our more advanced students, you have to get a YouTube channel on there because it is so, so good for SEO. It has this synergistic effect, and it also helps build that tribe. And even, I've never been a fan of social media like Facebook and stuff, but got to admit, Facebook pages work or groups work really well as well.
That's really been one of my changes over the last year or two. Is I'm happy to build up that YouTube asset because I've just seen how well it performs. Actually, through coaching Pat Flynn, I saw how well he went with his Pokemon channel.
Yeah.
He got up to 800,000
Case in point.
subscribers, so quickly. And it's a multi-generational market, and he just loves it so much. And I thought, well, I think I can do that, surfing. And I have built an email list, you'll be pleased to know, which is good. And the other thing that I've done, and this is like just for context, so when I first started, I started as a forum, but I couldn't get traction with that. So I went with the blog, and we tried doing news and events, but they fade so quickly. But then where we hit the sweet spot was equipment, because people just and that's also where the only money in surfing is, right? It's in the equipment and accessories. And so that was our sweet spot. But what I notice when I'm making the videos now, I'm actually making the videos that the manufacturers should have made. And so we're doing reviews that are on people's mind, and we actually compare the equipment. Like, how do you compare? What's better, this or this? Or if you have this kind of equipment, what's the right fitting? It's like, imagine if you're a snowboarder or something, which boots you want, fixed boots or soft boots, right? And the manufacturers are really resonating with this, and they actually comment like, hey, thank you for making this content. Like, they're like there's a fin manufacturer in Hawaii who saw my video, and I was raving about the product, and they just obviously they sold out straight away when this thing went live. So I'm just connecting up the dots to get to that next step for where someone's going to want to buy this to sell more of their stuff. But we instinctively know that, but work with your data and your research and try different approaches. But I think, just to recap where we're at, so far we're saying in some markets, there's great opportunities, because if you're passionate about it and if you make real content, then that's what the search engine actually wants. That's what the buyer will value. If you can monetize it through different methods for advertising or list building or affiliate offers or new categories, try new categories, then that's also going to increase the value. And if you can put your attention on fewer targets and get more of a bullseye happening, that's better than having 10 crappy sites just to have one powerhouse. If you can fall in love with that and make it really strong, that's probably a good strategy.
Yep. Yeah. So it's definitely a test now that we say to people, but the challenge is for beginners, they've got to learn this stuff. So for us, a teaching methodology is, try a few different sites. You got to figure out which ones work well. It's like our friend Albors, Albors, he sold his content site for $64 million, pretty cool story. But what people don't realize.
Then he started another one, right?
Yeah, he started another one. It's just rinse and repeat. It's gone bigger. It's worth, I'm allowed to say it now, he came and spoke at one of our events just recently. It's over 100 mil already that's valued at. So it's just exactly the same thing.
That's the classic, do more of what's working.
Yep, what's working. He's got the same team.
And he seems to like cars too.
He loves cars. So that's his passion. But when he started out, he did what we're teaching all beginners to do. He didn't know how any of this worked. So he started 17 websites. And then he whittled it down to 3 that worked. And then out of that, he went, and this is where he used to stir us and we used to stir him, because Liz and I have always had a big portfolio. He went the opposite. We should have followed him, mate. $64 million. He was right. But he did pick a particularly good niche too, and he's really good at it. But he went for the one out of the 3. So he started with 17 sites. So I don't have enough hands. And then got 3 that worked, obviously were making enough money that, he didn't have to keep going to uni. And then he decided the cars one is the one he's passionate about. And when you think about it, that fits my model, because that first site took him about 10 years to become incredibly successful with. And I think that's a really good test. I say to people, okay, you're about to spend $500,000 on this website. Are you prepared to work at this thing? for the next 5 to 10 years. And if they're umming and ahhing and going, well, maybe you shouldn't be buying it. This could be life-changing for you, but you've got to be something that you're going to be passionate at. These days, Google definitely notices passion sites. And I will say this too, James. Here's the other interesting thing. Passion sites now with real traffic, I believe, are about to become even more valuable. I know I've always said that, but I think it's very obvious in this day and age of AI and with the helpful content update. What you're talking about, what you're doing with your site, it's literally giving Google what they want. They want helpful content. You know how you said you're doing stuff that the manufacturers should have been doing? Mm-hmm. That's exactly what Google wants to see.
And we're doing stuff that we're kind of doing stuff that the buyer would wave a magic wand and wish for.
Yep, perfect.
I think, okay, if there's a brand new surfboard coming out, what would I as a consumer do? I'm going to go and look at YouTube. I'm going to look at the manufacturer site. I'm going to look on Instagram for reviews of it. I'm going to do a Google search. I'm going to look at all the specs on it. I'm going to compare it to what else I might consider for the same money. So we go and get all that information and put it into one thing. And then I add my own, like, writer's notes, like we got one, tested it. Here's what we noticed, here's the writer's weight, height, writing notes and stuff. Which fins do you use with it? Just being helpful. That's what they want.
And so you think about the opposite. What we're seeing with this helpful content update is that spammy sites, or what I've been saying for many years to our community is, look, you've got to stop producing these generic or formulaic looking sites. It's not helpful to use the Google update. And the good thing with the Google update, as harsh as it is, it's very clear what they want. And Google have put together some really good documentation. The web developer notes that they've put, there's just 1 or 2 pages. You can go and if you haven't read it and you're into content sites, it's a really dumb thing to not read it, because it's probably the most accurate stuff you'll read out there on the internet. There's a lot of BS out there about SEO at the moment and what's going on, because I'm in a lot of private forums and I look at all the comments, and then someone will say, oh, my site's been hit by Google. It's really unfair. I built it. It's a legitimate, it's a really good site. And a bunch of us will go and look at it, and everyone, gets back on the forum and says, dude, it took less than 5 minutes, mate. If I was a Google employee, I'd give you a penalty too. It's crap. Like, it's clearly spammy. It's funny. What you're doing is what Google wants, but there's so many sites out there that are very what we call formulaic, where people just mass produce content because they hear this idea. And I mean, we teach this. Google wants fresh content. So, the theory is the more content you produce, the more money you'll make. Guys, it's got to be quality content. That's the problem. And I'll give everyone a bit of advice, is if you want to check the quality of your content, like, it's a pretty rough way, but gosh, it works well, is shock horror. Just look at your Google Analytics and look at time on page. If it's less than 30 seconds, I would rank that as crap, or let's use the not so helpful tag. If it's more than a minute time on page, you're doing pretty well. More than 30 seconds is bearable, but that's our benchmarks when we want to renovate a site. So if we buy a site, or I'm helping a client when they buy a site, big or small, we need to look at time on page and the most popular pages. And that's where you can tell your engagement metrics. It's pretty simple, really, to, if you look across most sites that I see. So James, one of the interesting things I get to do, I literally get to do due diligence on thousands of websites, and that means looking at Google Analytics. I sound like a pretty exciting person, don't I? I'm pretty nerdy.
So I'm just thinking, the nerd alert just went off.
Yeah, well, you think about it. Over, talk about 10,000 hours.
Hey man, everyone's got to have their hobby. I get it.
That's right. My hobby is geeking out on keyword research and Google Analytics. But hey, at least
you also do mountain biking and Ninja Warrior. You got to balance.
Yeah, well, mountain biking and Ninja Warrior is the cool stuff. But this is the one. This is my hobby that makes me a lot of money. But here's what I've noticed over the years. That's how I came up with those kind of stats. It's just benchmarking by seeing tens of thousands of Google Analytic accounts. And what I notice is patterns, and this is also from talking to people as well. But really, you think about it, if someone's on a web page for less than 30 seconds, they're not engaged. And Google knows that. So you're going to get, I just say that's a cross. Whereas if someone's you do an article where you review these fins, and it's better than what manufacturer's done and it's exactly what they want, I guarantee you that person is probably, the average time on page is probably more than a minute. When you're up into the 4 minutes, that's typically where we see the big winning sites. So we help people with 7-figure sites. Like these are sites that are making 600,000 to $1 million to a couple of million a year. And when you look through the Google Analytics of those, man, it's fascinating seeing the time on page, the difference with a real, also with some of our clients with really successful smaller sites. It's always the same thing. When I go through the Google Analytics, there's really high engagement on the pages. So you want to get geeky like me if you're listening to this and start looking at your Google Analytics. Or Google Search Console is pretty good for that as well. And that's a key one. And real quick one that I've noticed out of my geeky little hobby is, and this, I think this directly relates to the latest Google updates, is guess what's a really popular page across all the tens of thousands of content sites that I've looked at over the years that most people, what I call people that are creating generic sites, don't think of? It's the About page.
I was going to say the About page.
You think about it. Most people think, oh, it's got to be the home page and whatever, at all the call to action pages. You'll be amazed at how often, okay, the About page is not the most popular page. It's definitely heavily visited, particularly on a passion site or sites where people want to know who the hell's reviewing these surfboards, or like what makes this real. And even more so now, I believe, in this day and age of AI. So Google does not like AI content because generic formulaic, exactly what I'm talking, it's mass produced, it's useless, it's not helpful. Guess what? Guess who else gets their, what's the word, BS radars up? Real humans can tell as well.
Of course, they don't like when they find out they've been dealing with a robot.
So that's why they want to see your About page. And if you're listening to this, it's perfectly okay to write as a pseudonym. So like you do, James, you don't use your real name on the site. We're the same one.
I think we mentioned James, but it's definitely, I've not made this about me. And I don't think in my YouTube
and
videos
you shouldn't.
I ever mention my name, or it's not about me. It's about the product, right? And by the way, some of those videos are 14 minutes long. So it's hard to hold attention for that long. You really have to pack the content in a really engaging way.
See, that can't be faked. So what it's about today is quality, engaging content. And isn't it interesting? We were saying this before the latest Google updates came out, because what gave us the big clue was when Google Analytics, again, going back to my nerdy hobby, Google Analytics changed from, universal Google. If you're listening to this, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it went to GA4, which is, it's all driven by engagement. So that's a clue. Okay, this is really, really important to Google. Don't fight it. Let's just go for engagement. And like you're doing with your real content, your YouTube videos, that's creating real content where people are engaged, particularly if they're watching things for 14 minutes. Google knows that. They relate it to your website, always link to your website. And that's a super important thing, is this engagement, and also the About page. That's one of the key renovations we get people to do when they buy a website. Typically, About pages are pretty bad. And this day and age, in the day and age of EAT signals, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, Google, I can guarantee you, puts a lot of weight on the About page. The Google bot is checking it out, as are your human visitors. They want to know, who's this expert in, like gardening or whatever it is. That's a fun page to work on. Another geeky hobby.
Well, I know we've done a good job on our business site. I do have to go and check the surf one. But to your point about more, like we're up to episode 1077. We had a lot of content on my site. We actually had 3,000 posts. And my friend Geert gave me a bad day one day. He goes, okay, we've analyzed the site. I'm not going to use German accent, right, Austrian accent, but he said, here are all the pages in a spreadsheet, and I've flagged the ones that have had very few visits and that have no backlinks. And he said, I recommend you delete them.
That's what we recommend too. And I'm Same thing.
Oh, that's savage, right? Guess how many pages we deleted from 3,000?
Well, for some of our clients, it's a lot, but how many did you do on yours out of interest? How many?
1,099 pages we deleted.
Whoa, yeah, that would be about right.
So engagement. That's when that was the exact moment I realized, okay, this is not about more. This is about what's relevant. And he explained it clearly. He said, by taking away all the stuff that no one cares about, that's not being linked to, that's not interesting, that's confusing and muddying the waters, we'll actually get a clearer picture for Google of what your site's about. A month later, he contacts me. He goes, "Guess what? You're now on page 1 for this phrase. That used to be on you were ranked 100 for this phrase before. It's now on page 1." And it's clearly because now Google understands what the website's about, and the only content there is actually visited or linked. I even had a couple of guests contact me and they said, "Oh, James, is everything okay? I noticed you deleted our podcast." I'm like, "Hey, don't worry. Like, it's still on YouTube and it's
Yeah.
still out there, right? It's just not on the post. But in the reality is, no one's visiting the post, and no one linked to the post. So we're not missing out anything. We should smile that we had that opportunity. Don't cry that it's gone, but it's still out there on the website. It's still on YouTube or whatever. But such a lesson learned. And so my advice is for other people, if you're furiously under the hood creating stuff, just stop for a minute. Think about the client that I had who was doing over $1 million a year selling courses, and he spent the vast majority of his time updating his courses, redoing the modules, rechecking the curriculum. And that's what we have to do with our website. We go back through the numbers. We say, well, what's ranking well? What's getting the visits? What do people interact with? Let's make more of that. That's, by the way, our YouTube success formula. Every video builds on the one before it instead of taking a big risk. And then we prune and delete. Like, I actually logged into YouTube, and anything that had less than like 80% likes, I just deleted the video. Like, clearly we're off target. That people don't want it. And I take that feedback as a lesson, and I turn that lesson into informing the next action. So are you, in general, Matt, are you buying, are you selling, or are you building?
Buying. So really, really smart question. So up until now, we've been both buying and building, and we've been advising our clients, and we've said it's a no-brainer to be, while you're learning this stuff, you should be building portfolio sites and doing keyword research. Now we think it's turned around to, believe it or not, this is possibly one of the best times to be buying again, because any site that's come through the Google update that's still going well is obviously proven. Also, deals are much more negotiable now. So with sites, if you're listening to this and you know what you're doing, you want to be looking for bargains. Now's one of the best times. So this might be one of those, once in a lifetime, because you get them heaps online.
It's a phase,
but
right? There's 10-year phases and stuff.
Yeah, so we're strongly advising, it depends when this podcast goes out, but in the latter part of 2024 or in the mid part of 2024, I think there's going to be some really good opportunities, bargains out there. Also, you've got to keep an eye on the macro scene as well. We're talking buying businesses here. There's there's rumblings out there in the economy and stuff, and we're advising people, we're in a very volatile period now in human history. It's not just with the online stuff. And I've seen it since we've been buying and selling, well, even bricks and mortar businesses. We've been doing that for 30 years, but even since 2008, doing it with online businesses. Whenever there's a bit of a macro fear out there, you can snap up bargains. You can get like flash buys. People want cash. So, and the good thing with websites, you can sell them real quick. So I've got to share this example, talking about these sorts of bargains. One of our friends has multi-million-dollar portfolio sites, right? And he raised funds to do it. And he's like us over the last few years, it's all about building these from scratch, just builds them from scratch. He's got a whole team. He's got like 300 writers. He's a big business. But now he's like me. He's going, yep, Matt, it's now time to start buying again. Now, this is a guy that can spend millions, right? The sweet spot is buying sites under 50K, because the upside is massive compared to a normal, bricks and mortar business. There's hardly any risk if you know what you're doing. And so he just recently bought a site for $7,000. And you know why? This is the sort of things you want to look for. He was on an ad network. This site, the previous owner had it on ad network. You need minimum 50,000 visitors a month to be accepted into it. It's Mediavine. I think it was Mediavine or AdThrive, one of the two, but Mediavine's the most common one. And of course, in the latest Google update, it got hit, traffic halved, Mediavine cancelled the account. So he's got hardly any income off it. So his income dropped significantly. So our mate just bought it for $7,000. So this is a guy that can afford millions, but he's so excited about this thing because it's in a niche that he knows. It's in a passion niche that him and his team know really well. Picks this thing up for $7,000. And that's in the sweet spot of buying. And he said, Matt, I want more of those, because what it came with was an email list of 20,000. So basically they valued it at about 50 cents a name, because this is an engaged email list. The previous owner had just thrown in a towel though. So if you're listening to this is what you want to hear. People are out there. You think of the emotional gut wrench you get on your passion site. These people out there, they're there every day. When their site gets slammed, they lose their income. What do? They just throw in a towel. They take anything. So you just took, to him, the seller, $7,000 was a great outcome. To my mate, it was an outstanding outcome because it came with 20,000 people. He's already been in a niche. He knows straight away he can monetize that just by putting through a few direct sponsors or affiliate offers through that email list. He'll make a fortune out of that site. And also what he's done, James, he's added it. He's done a deal with Mediavine where, because he's such a big player with Mediavine, they've just straight away put it back on the Mediavine. So, that's how you can win when you get more experience in this space.
I love that. I bought 200 websites once, and one of the domains was a 2-word name, and I contacted that person and sold them their domain back for more than I paid for the 200 websites.
It's cool. Well, that's the sort of opportunities are going to be out there. So for your audience, as I know, they tend to be a lot more advanced than, say, our community. And so you guys, anyone listening to this, you should be educating yourself on how to buy and sell websites, because if you've got a bit of experience, and particularly, James, here's another interesting opportunity we're seeing. This is interesting. So you asked, are we more building or buying or selling? So it's actually, we're going back to the buying phase now, and we're getting ready to buy up bargains. And I'm already hunting around, and it's interesting. All the brokers are telling me, Matt, it's interesting. All you professional buyers are coming out of the woodwork again now, because valuations on websites have gone through the roof. So it's been a really good seller's market. Now people like myself and Liz and all my friends, we're starting to fish around for the deals. We can sense it. And if you know what you're looking for, you can find the gold. It's not always about getting a bargain, but it's about getting the good websites that other people are not looking at. And the other thing that we're seeing that can work really well in this marketplace is, that buying price under 50 grand. So typically we would spend 6 or 7 figures, but there's a sweet spot under 50K. There is a sweet spot between 200,000 to $1 million as well, but that's probably, unless you've done it before, I wouldn't do that. But the other interesting thing, which will be really good for you and Charlie, is, I'm an SEO, all right? That's my nerdy hobby. But I got to admit, we're coming back to paid traffic after all these years. We've been playing with it. It's working brilliantly. Facebook advertising. I know Charlie does some amazing stuff with YouTube
Charlie
advertising.
Yep.
Yeah, Charlie Vaya. And if you're listening to this and you're a bit more advanced, there's a massive arbitrage in buying slammed websites. We call them fallen angels, and then using paid traffic on them. And I'm actually looking at one right now where it's making money with paid traffic, which is, so the numbers do work. You've got to make sure you got a good team on board, like a good agency, like someone like Charlie
I know
helping you.
Charlie's going so well that he's doubling, tripling, quadrupling the return on investment from other agencies that his clients have come to him. They've heard about him because he got good results for their friend. It's like all this word of mouth referral, and I guess we're mentioning it here, but valormedia.com, if he'll accept you as a client, he is just like finger on the pulse, and he's slaying. He's absolutely getting the best results for clients. And I'm a huge fan of paid traffic as well. I get there's 30 people every single day that I get $1 each. It costs me to get an email address in exchange for my book, on an ongoing campaign that Chris Bonetti set up for me. And he was a student of Charlie's, actually, which is funny. And I've got Amazon promoting my book on that platform. They're right at the top of the funnel. So there's lots of different angles. And I've got Google, of course, contributing people who are searching for my brand. I think it's a really good idea to keep paid traffic in mind, and you're really opening up options. I guess the big question someone's having is, Matt, if they're in your program, do you help them?
Yes, we do, with coaching calls and things and the strategy. So we're constantly updating the program. You mentioned that before. We're doing a big update now too, because things are changing. And I think there's more opportunities. So, in the past, I'll say it, we've been anti-paid traffic because for beginners, it's challenging to get paid traffic working. Now, though, and this is why I mentioned it particularly to your listeners, if you're a bit more intermediate and if you can get someone like Charlie on board, a really good digital agency to help you with paid traffic's definitely worth considering, particularly if you can buy these, but I don't want to call them bargain sites, but, really good opportunity sites. And, the other thing that is making a comeback is, I'll come back to your question in a minute, but is forums. I can't help myself because you would appreciate this. You mentioned you had a forum, and we've been anti-forums for years because they're not passive. We typically teach people to set up semi-passive sites. But interesting, James. Me and my friends, we're all now looking at buying sites that we can put an email list or have an email list and or a forum, because Google's paying a lot of attention to forums. Now, they're not passive.
It's a big thing right now in the online
big
space.
Thing. It's huge, and it's anti-AI. So AI content, if you listen to this, is not good for content sites. Definitely.
Use AI for research. Use AI to leverage and augment your team's manual efforts to get the draft or whatever, but polish and modify for sure.
Yeah, that's that. So we're teaching our community members, you want real sites, real community behind them, either email list, forum, or newsletters. They're big now as well. Just that real engagement across multiple channels. And that's why passion sites still rock. We're still seeing 7 and 8 figure deals in passion sites, food blogs selling for 7 figures.
To some extent, AI is probably fueling the demand of people who are no longer got their job to do, who want to find another thing to do, like buying and selling and growing websites. That's pretty crazy, but
it's a wild time. There is lots of opportunities. And also, you'll be surprised at this, whilst I'm a massive content fan, I'm open to our clients now, not e-commerce. I don't think that's smart for beginners. If you're more advanced, that's fine, have products, but drop shipping, that can work really well as well.
I know I've got a client who does this very, very well for other people. And he takes all the pain points out for them. He finds the products, he stocks them in a warehouse, he lets them buy it at cost, and so they make a steady margin on it. It's very clever. He's the only guy I know who does this, and he solved the problem that everyone else has had with e-commerce, like choosing the product, where to put it, getting ripped off by supply. All that's all gone, and they're doing it at a great scale, and they're deservedly. So I think there are options, maybe to talk about another day. But gee, what an update, Matt! And it sounds like you're completely on top of what's going on and prospering as always. I mean, let's face it, you could pack this up tomorrow if you want and just tinker with your websites, right? You do this because you love it. I'm going to put a link up. We'll put here. You've got an online class that people can look at. It's go.ebusinessinstitute.com.au/James. That is an affiliate link. I'm not afraid to admit it, but I am a true fan based on all of the great clients that I've sent across who have come back and said, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I've actually, to this day, I've actually never heard a single negative word ever, which is a reason why I endorsed this program of yours. It's just, and also I've worked with you and Liz very closely.
That's because I get everyone geeking out on buying and selling websites and Google Analytics and how much fun it is, because that's where you make your money. Seriously, it's keyword research. Once you know how to do due diligence, it's really exciting. So it's a very exciting space. But yeah, thank you for that. And we are, in your question, if people are on our course, obviously we do a lot of coaching. So we've got a We've grown quite a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've got quite a number of our very successful students who, if you're interested, you'll see them on our podcast and stuff. They're our coaches. They're our head coaches. They're all doing this. They've all got 6 or 7 figure online businesses from this, and they all do. We teach a variety of strategies now, but it's mainly around, buying and renovating websites, and particularly content sites. But obviously, we're broadening that out a bit to include some other things like SaaS and drop shipping and local digital agencies. That's probably a really cool topic for another podcast interview, because
something I've got some experience in.
You've got a lot of experience in it, James. You should see what's happening in that space now, James. That's really interesting.
I know there's a lot of roll-ups happening, and
that's my favorite thing, roll-ups. And that's what's happening with the buying and selling a passion site. So roll-ups is when big corporates come in and buy these simple blogs, your passion blogs, like our friend Albor's, for 60 mil.
I've got about 6 books on that exact topic that I've got in the last few months. I'm speaking to friends of mine like Nick, and it's funny.
That's my background.
I know, but like your background is coming full circle, and it's now the thing that people are doing. So thank you so much.
That's what love. I was always taught by those guys that I helped do all those roll-ups is follow the big money, Matt. When you see the big corporates coming in, and that's what's happening in this online space now for passion sites. We're seeing big corporates paying big money for real websites. So get out there and make it happen.
Exciting times. Thank you, Matt Rard from eBusiness Institute. We'll get you back to talk about some of those things.
Google Analytics, James.
Thank you so much. Episode 1077 up at jamesschramko.com. We'll put the show notes there and a link to Matt's program, which I get such tremendous feedback about. Thank you.
This is James Schramko.